Shaquille O'Neal, who has been a big supporter of MMA, not just verbally with some of the media that he gets, but he shows up to the events, he brings attention. He is a member of the American top team and practices himself. So Shaquille O'Neal came out and he was very cool, and he credited 3 world championships, 3 NBA rings, to the sport of MMA. And the basic premise that Shaq was laying out is basketball is difficult. Basketball takes timing, it takes focus, it takes conditioning. But when I was able to go and do MMA, when it was time to compete in basketball, I was actually going down a notch. MMA training was much harder, much more demanding, required much more focus, more intensity, more involvement. So when I did that in the off season, and then I went to basketball, I actually found that I was more than prepared to go into a basketball game. Now, that was a very cool thing for him to say. For him to put MMA over with the success he's had in his sport was a very cool thing to say, but he makes a very fair point. If you can ever find something harder, there is a lot of coaches out there who will really encourage their best football players to make sure they go out for wrestling. And it's not about getting scholarships or even winning championships. It's about just getting that conditioning. We had a coach out here in Oregon, Dave Shilofsky, and this young man comes in from Colorado. He's a freshman, going to be a freshman. And Dave Shilofsky, Coach Shilofsky, is this Ethan Long is the athlete's name. Keep that name in mind because you're going to hear him in the NFL. Ethan Long comes in. He's going to be the school's quarterback. School is supposed to win the state championship that year. Okay, so there's a very good team. Freshman's going to go out, head up the team. So Ethan Long trusts Coach Shilofsky with his strength and conditioning. So when the football season ends and Ethan wants to get his strength and conditioning in, he goes to Coach Dave. Coach Dave hands him a pair of wrestling shoes. Says, this is what you're going to get for conditioning for the next 10 weeks. This is it. Be in this room every day. And he does. Ethan does. Now, Ethan goes on to have a ridiculous amount of success in wrestling, but that was on accident. He was never in it for success. Didn't care about wrestling at all. He just trusted his coach. That was it. Coach said, go do this. Turned out Ethan was great. Side note, Ethan goes on and sets all sorts of records, gets recruited early, signed with Arizona State, and now starts for them as a quarterback. He will be drafted into the NFL. The point being, though, there is many examples that I could give you that if you can go find something harder than what you really want to do, you'll go find the best workout partners in your sport. If you're a high school kid and you can go get college workouts, any sport, when you return to high school, it's a step down. You're looking across that court or that field, all of a sudden that guy's not as big and strong as the guys you were just practicing with. Just by example. So when Shaq comes out, and he was cool enough to admit he found something more difficult than what he was actually competing in, you need to listen to him because he's laying out a mentality for training. And for MMA, that can be very hard. Many people, I think, would hold MMA, a combination of boxing and wrestling, if you will, broad stroke. But boxing and wrestling being two of the most taxing and trying sports you could possibly do. Nobody has success in either without an absolute level of commitment just because of the intensity of it, just because of the cardio issue. So when you combine that into a sport of MMA, you are left with the question, well, what's harder? What is it that if I want to have the same mental and physical benefit that Shaquille O'Neal talked about, which led him to 3 world championships by his own words, what can I do that's harder than MMA? I think that's a tough one. But I do think there's an answer out there. I have my own opinion. I do not think MMA is the ultimate athletic sport. I think that gymnastics is the ultimate sport. And if you took a guy, George St. Pierre, that's what he did to train to then go into MMA. Now, that's one example, and George did it for some different reasons. George liked the strength and the flexibility aspect of it more than he liked anything else. I will just offer for a suggestion. I'm open to hearing what anybody thinks. But before you tell me go into track and field or go run sprints, all fighters do that. All fighters, I mean, that's the first thing they do in the morning. They get up, they go put their miles in. So it'd be very hard. I bring up track and field because I also respect the marathon runner. I think the marathon runner never gets the credit for how tough he is. When you are doing an activity that you can stop anytime you want, or you can finish because you don't elect to stop, nobody's trying to stop you. Nobody will stop you. Only you against you. I really respect the marathon runner. I would just share for you so you don't use as an example that MMA athletes in large part are runners. Marathon, no. But runners, yes. So what is left? If you wanted to have the Shaq effect and you wanted to try to find something that you deemed more difficult so that when you went into your competition, it was less. You know, Brian Stann and Tim Kennedy used to talk about this. Everybody in fighting was scared to fight. These guys were cool as can be. And they both separately had done interviews over time. And if you read them, they said the same thing. Brian Foster comes to mind. You guys remember Brian Foster? Teammate of mine. These guys were military heroes, but they weren't just in the military, okay? To qualify as hero, that means you saw active duty. So Tim Kennedy or Brian Stann or Brian Foster would laugh at the idea of having to deal with the stresses of walking into a cage with a referee in there that can help you out anytime under the unified rules. It's just for their mentality and the things that they had to see, it was a step down. That's the mental side. I'm asking a question that I don't know the answer to. I'm asking the question. Is there physically an activity that you could do so that MMA was easier?